Could a free Roman woman be romantically involved with a slave? Roman law says, yes, it happened. Often enough, in fact, that there were laws specifically outlining punishments for such relationships. Let's set the stage. Some slaves were young, attractive, and constantly present in elite households. At the same time, many free Roman men were away fighting on the empire's frontiers, in places like Parthia, Britain, or Germania. The social imbalance left many Roman women alone, frustrated, and sometimes drawn to someone forbidden. Now, imagine a Roman woman. Wealthy, cultured, but lonely. Maybe she's barely 20, living under her father's strict rule. Or perhaps she's a matrona, married to a distant senator more invested in politics than passion. One day, a new household slave arrives, strong, foreign, attentive, and the unthinkable begins. But what happened next depended on her legal and family status. If she was unmarried and still under her father's patria potestas, his legal power over her, he had total control. He could reprimand her, confine her, or take the matter further. If she was married, her husband could deal with it privately, or file for divorce. Roman law allowed divorce on the grounds of adultery, adulterium, and while relationships with slaves weren't always prosecuted as adultery, they were seen as deeply shameful. But here's the twist. The slave's owner had no legal right to sue the woman. Why? Because allowing that would open the door to blackmail. Any slaveholder could accuse a woman of seducing his property. So, only the woman's own dominus, her father, husband, or male guardian, could press charges. That process was serious. First, the dominus had to formally warn her 3 times. Each warning had to be public and witnessed. This wasn't just a family matter. These warnings were a ritual of social shame. Imagine being called out in front of servants or neighbors, told to end a disgraceful relationship. If she ignored those warnings, the dominus could bring her to court. There, a praetor or iudex would hear the case. Witnesses were key. Slaves could testify under torture, a brutal but common Roman legal method. The judge could consider circumstantial evidence, love notes, gifts, rumors from the household. But the burden of proof was high. If guilt was proven, the consequences were severe. The woman could be legally enslaved and handed over to the slave's owner. This wasn't theoretical. The jurist Ulpian, writing in the 3rd century CE, records cases where women were enslaved for refusing to end affairs with slaves despite multiple public warnings. Gaius, another Roman legal authority, confirmed that a dominus had to demonstrate persistent disobedience before legal action could begin. But what did it feel like for her? For the woman, the experience could be terrifying, not just because of legal risks, but because her dignity, family honor, and very freedom were on the line. She was expected to embody chastity, control, and obedience. Her desire, especially for someone beneath her, was seen not only as shameful, but as social collapse. Roman society was obsessed with hierarchy. For a woman to love a slave was to blur the sacred line between citizen and property. It wasn't just immoral, it was disorder. Satirists like Juvenal mocked such women, portraying them as wild, lust-driven, and shameful. The idea of a woman giving herself to a man in chains horrified many elites. And yet, it happened. What if the woman owned the slave herself? Then, she was legally untouchable. Since all household slaves belonged to the dominus, no one had standing to sue. If she was independent, a widow, for example, she could technically do as she pleased. People might gossip, but no court would intervene. Wealthy women who fell for someone else's slave had options. The simplest? Buy him. If she couldn't, because her dominus forbade it, she and her lover had only desperate choices left. They could run away, flee to a distant Roman colony, adopt new names, and pretend to be free citizens. No photos, no databases, a few bribes, a forged tablet or two, and they might start over. Or she could beg her dominus to buy the slave and either free him or keep him close. That way, they could be together under supervision, sparing the family public shame. There was one more trick, though risky. The dominess could sue her on purpose, have her legally transferred as a slave to her lover's owner, who, as part of a private deal, would free them both after the case. Some lovers found freedom that way, trading public disgrace for private happiness. Of course, not every deal was honored. Some owners decided to keep both as slaves. Lovers reunited in chains. Roman law was strict. Roman society was harsher. But where law ends, love sometimes begins. Even in the heart of an empire built on order, control, and status, passion still broke the rules, and sometimes remade them. If you found this story as wild and fascinating as we did, hit like, subscribe, and let us know what part shocked you most. See you in the next episode.